Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. So I'll be talking about geospatial tech in the industry from my perspective view. So this session is mostly to my alma mater, which was Moi University, because right now we're in GIS day, right? So it's a GIS, it's a Geography Awareness Week, but it's mostly for the session for Wednesday, which is the GIS day. And end of 2021 review, it means I'm talking about my career so far and just like a snapshot and to give you an overview of the GIS industry. So the talk is mostly targeted to definitely university students, right? And beginners in the industry too. It can be beneficial to them. So I'm Brian Pondi, currently based in Berlin, Germany. You'll get to know more about me. I'll introduce myself in the next slides. The agenda is going to be basically brief, so about me, and we'll talk about my experience and background. It will be mostly mentions. Then after that, we can have like a look into the GIS industry based on my experience. So I'll be talking about a few of the things that I've done, not be able to cover it in detail, right? And then I have some insights on what I think about the future, and then possibly Q&A. So the questions and answers session will be exactly on Wednesday, which I think is the 18th of November, right? So it will be via Zoom. Hopefully I'll be able to log in at that time. And yeah. So a little bit about me. I can start at the bottom. So it's bottom left. You can see that's a logo of Moi University. So that's where I studied my bachelor's degree in geography, right? And then I also, after that, I decided to do a master's in computer systems at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, but I really never finished. I dropped out because I got an interesting role. And right now I'm doing my master's at the Institute for Geoinformatics at the University of Munster in Germany. So I'm already done with coursework, but now remaining working out on the second year. So where I mostly started my role was in Mombasa County, doing geospatial works for urban planning. I'll talk in depth about that. Then later on, it was more of a consultancy. Then later on, I moved to SIAT. So SIAT is the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. The abbreviation is in Spanish, but right now I think they've changed the name. They're like Alliance for Biodiversity and SIAT. It's like two companies formed an alliance, two research organizations. But there is where I did agricultural research. And then I joined the UN Habitat, so United Nations, but it was for a short time. I really didn't have great impact, but the tool that I was working on, I'll talk about it, right? Because it was just interesting. And then I joined Property Finder. So this when I relocated to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And basically it was doing GIS in the real estate sector, right? And then after that, so while I'm doing my master's in Germany, I have been able to work in two organizations because of how my program is structured. So from January to August, I was working at ILS, which is it's a research institute for urban research. And then right now I'm based in Targomo, where I'm mostly also doing lots of Java programming in the JS backend and also some Python. Okay, so if we look into where the journey started, basically my journey started in Moi University back in Kenya. This is a university in Kenya, one of the public universities in the country. And I was there between 2012 to 2016 doing a bachelor's degree in geography. And also in that area, we had a students association, which was the GeoSAMU, Geography Students Association of Moi University. And basically here, we're mostly doing things that after the studies, or things that were also not covered in the studies, like the practical bits mostly. So and also it was more of like a training where those who adopted the things faster will train fellow students. And also it was structured in a way that we could also train like the first years, the technologies, even before they could have the theory of it. They already experienced it in the GSAMO. So I was the Secretary General in second year. Third year I became the Vice President, and in fourth year I was the President of GSAMO. Yeah, and yeah, it was pretty vibrant during my time, and I hope it is. I believe it is right now, right? And looking at my first of my roles, so this was in about 2015. It was on a Mombasa County project. So I was under an organization called Geodev Kenya Limited, and it was in partnership with Intercontinental Consultants and Technocrats, which is a company from India. So basically, it was just to, after in 2015, that's like 3 years after Kenya had adopted the new system of government, which was the federal system of government, where there's the national government and subnational governments, which in Kenya we call them the counties. So we have got 47 subnational governments, right? And so this project was in the amazing Mombasa County, which is the key touristic city of Kenya, and also hub, and also an amazing hub, especially the seaport. And so basically what we were doing here was to do compare resources of like social amenities vis-a-vis population, and also doing looking into if urban planning, if there have been urban changes, like if the industry set up in some areas, what will the spillover effect, right? If that's the correct term. I don't know which term urban planners use, but it was to analyze that and also to identify gaps. For example, there are areas where there's lesser schools or lesser health facilities and such kind of stuff. So it was basically mapping mapping land use, and looking for change of land use for future visions of the Mombasa County. And yeah, it was an amazing project and I really loved it. It was the first home-ups into GIS in my career, right? So when I joined SIAT, the Agricultural Research Organization, this is actually the starting point where I mainly started to use programming. So it was mostly Python, and what you see here is it was actually derived from Python. So basically, it's a land degradation modeling result, and we were doing mapping soil erosions happening in Kenya, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, and Benin. So it was a project funded by the German government, German BMZ to be precise. And basically it was to look into areas that farmlands that are experiencing soil erosions, and so that intervention measures can be taken, right? Because Africa is a really key basket for food, especially food security, the population projections of 2050, and that's the issue we were trying to look into. And here also is where I kind of used Pearson's correlation. So you guys, if you remember, assessing the necessity for statistics. For example, this map is basically a Pearson's correlation. If you guys have already been taught the basic statistics, remember that in a simplest way in this context is so an increase in rainfall leads to an increase in vegetation cover. So that's like a positive Pearson's correlation. But for our case, we were really interested in regions where there is like good rainfall, but there's decrease in vegetation cover over time. So that's pinpointed soil erosion, right? And this map came from NDVI datasets, right? Daily NDVI datasets from Modis for 15 years, from 2000 to 2015. And we're also comparing the CHIPS or the CHAPS rainfall dataset. So it was a comparison of two satellites imageries, one time series satellite imagery of rainfall, and the other time series was of vegetation cover over a period of 15 years to generate these results. So that was nice, because you can imagine if you're supposed to process, for example, even data sets manually, like clipping, it will really take you a lot of time. Yeah, but for this, it will take like one day, right, to just process, but manually it could even take you over 6 months, or I don't know, 3 months. That's clipping 15 years. That's manually, or you'll just be bored. To be honest, I don't have a proper time estimate on it manually, but yeah, it just seems like a long task to do that. And also in the agricultural research, I did work on hydrological modeling. So this is soil and water assessment tools. There's QSWAT for QGIS and ArcSWAT for ArcGIS. And basically what we're interested in was, we're interested in soil erosion happening in the watersheds, because definitely there is agricultural activities happening in a water basin, because our watershed, they're usually huge, right? And so the goal was to try to minimize soil erosion, but we needed to know like which intervention measures need to be done. And using the SWOT, as you can see on this on your screen, is that we're able to look at various protective scenarios, like using forages, right, or contours, or doing terracing, contours and forage strips, and you can see the how much they lead to the increase in water yield, and how much they decrease sediment yield, right? And how much they decrease in surface runoff, right? There's a paper that's published on this, and you can easily find it. Yeah, I think if you look into Brian's set, or if you reach out, I can be able just to send you the access link, because it's an open paper, or policies. Okay. And from there is when I joined the United Nations. And when I joined the United Nations, again, it was GIS, but with programming. But as I said, I didn't have much impact here, because I stayed for a short time. But what we are working on, I can just tell you a little bit. It's as you can see, there were several countries, developing countries, especially in Asia and also in Africa, that have regions that were not doing proper land tenure system or proper documentation of properties. And so basically this social tenure domain model, it was basically to help people to the local authorities to be able to document properties, and as you can see, it can also generate certificate of occupancy. So this was mostly done with Python, and yeah, for QGIS plugin, right? So it's definitely a fully fledged QGIS tool that's this, right? And it was also an amazing look into things, and great insights. So from there is when I moved to Dubai, and into Dubai I joined the real estate prop tech company. So the biggest real estate portal in the Middle East, called Property Finder. And so basically in Property Finder, as you can see here on the map, it was basically to be able to first add this map search feature. There was no such a feature to search properties on a map. And then secondly, someone, since Dubai is like 85% foreigners, you find that when you move to Dubai, you really don't know where you want to live. You're not sure of the surrounding, the community. So for this, we mapped the relevant things like schools, restaurants, health institutions, and such kind of stuff. And also have the travel time analytics, right? So maybe because you want to live maybe close to your place where your kids goes to school, or close to your workplace, and you also have interest in certain kind of restaurants and delicacies, or various things. So all these location stuff were mapped out, and as you can see, it was it was like a huge success to them, to those who really are familiar with Dubai, to have this angle and have this as an alternative instead of just viewing properties on a list, right? And yeah, and also in the Property Finder, we also were doing real estate property price prediction, right? So I worked with the data scientists in that, and for me on the geospatial end was mostly just to generate the geospatial features, right? So for example, how the distance of the buildings to the malls, or to the beach, right, or to to the golf course, such kind of things, because these were affects house price, right? And among other things, because real estate is all about location, location, location. That's what matters mostly. And yeah, it was a nice way to utilize GIS in that context. Okay, then here now is where I'm in Germany. Yeah, I was working in urban research. So for here, I also did a Python. Oh, before I mentioned, for in this, it was mostly dealing with the PostGIS database, GeoServers, and then there were backend proxies to do that, right? But it was mostly doing PostGIS, some Python a little bit, but I was heavily using also SQL. It was nice. Yeah. On urban research, it's mostly again back to Python. So it was to develop a QGIS plugin, which I developed here. You can see the interface on the left, right? And then it was more of to do walkability index for urban areas in Europe, right? And this is because the governments here try to make this city livable. And so for example, here's one output. This is for Dusseldorf in Germany. You can be able to see a walkability index for normal people, just the whole population. And this one here on the further right is of the elderly people. So there's also a paper under review right now for this. If it will be published, I'll definitely share for those interested. But yeah, it was an interesting area, working with great scientists and implementing their solutions into a tool to be used all over by people in this area, because urban research is really huge in Europe, especially also since most people are across the world are trying to move from the rural to the urban. Migration is kind of high, right? So I think it's necessary. Yeah, and the next section now is this is now about location intelligence. So right now I'm working in Targomo, which is in Berlin, and is a company that helps business to know more about locations as they plan to expand their businesses and such kind of stuff. I think it's in first year or in second year. I think in first year is where most geographers learn about central place theory. So for you to understand location intelligence for business, I can give that as an example because it's equivalent to that. So in central place theory, there's usually a center that serves an area, but for that center to serve an area, there are two factors usually that are the main one: threshold, right? Threshold, so it's basically the number of people, right? You can cover, you can supply to, right? And then range is the distance or the time a person is willing to travel to get a product, right? So definitely, for example, you can't travel 2 hours to just look for salt or sugar. Yeah, but maybe the 2 hours, but maybe you're willing to travel 2 hours to go and buy a car or something, right? So that's also a factor, right? And for example, here, if you look at the interface, this is like the UI of our platform. It's called Loop. And so basically it helps business people to make decisions about locations immediately, because these are things that used to take them 3 months to do a research. So let me just say, for example, you have a supermarket chain, right? And you want to open a location and you already have 3 locations in mind. So if you come, for example, to this platform and put those locations and you can compare, it can be able to tell you more details about that, those locations, and rank them from best to worst, or the one that's not perfect. So because it will be able to tell you. So for example, if you are considering income for people, the amenities around, if those are your criteria, it will be able to do the analytics and tell you, okay, these are the number of people you can able to serve, and these people earn between this amount to this amount, right? There are various brackets of salaries. and you can be able to be sure to know, okay, this is the right market, right? And also another thing, you can also be able to compare with your competitors and see if there's a cannibalization, like a cannibalization is, for example, when in a certain area, maybe you can also share the clients 50%, like your competitor takes 50, you take 50, right? Or your competitor is strong enough taking more people, so take 70% while you remain with 30%. So these are various factors, and there's way more. So for example, in this service, we deal with you can see, for example, to know the range, using it in a central place theory context. So that's the time it takes to travel. So if you put even a range of 15 minutes, that's like, it means there needs to be a routing algorithm to calculate that behind the scenes. So we do that, such kind of things using Java, and also getting these data sets are all served with Java, and then there are various algorithms that work on top of all this, right? And it's really great since there are various clients, even big entities like McDonald's, that really like the model. Yeah, and it's a good way to provide insights to the business, right? And they don't need to have like an in-house GIS system and do crazy analytics and stuff for just doing this like, right? And it's good that we are providing the service for them to use. And so looking about the future or the present, I usually say the present or the future. It's both the same to me, because the trend, the present defines the future. And there's this article that I wrote, do GIS professionals need to know computer programming? And the answer I can say is yes and no, but it's kind of good to really know. And maybe I might be biased because my career has been mostly around programming, right? Being a geographer, but I still program a lot. But the thing is, if you look into GIS right now, it's so integrated. So unless you're using, so I usually put GIS into context. Are you doing GIS as a science or GIS as a tool? So the tool is like when, for example, a urban planner or environmentalist just use GIS once in a while to do a stuff, right? To do a task, and that's it, or maybe to do map visualization or something, right? But to do GIS as a science is maybe to come up with the new innovative solutions based on the geospatial domain, right? And my opinion is that it's usually good to know programming, especially if you want to stick with GIS as a career in the science perspective and not as a tool, right? Because GIS right now is mostly integrated in the modern world. If you look there, you'll find there's a spatial data scientist now, and if you look there, you will see roles like geospatial data engineers. If you look, you'll also find roles like yeah, definitely geospatial software engineers, right? Which I more consider myself to be. I tend to lean between software engineering and data engineering. The thing is, for the other people who use GIS as a tool, even urban planners themselves, right now there is massive data sets to help in making decisions about urban planning, for example. So like doing like this mobility data, movement of people, these data sets are collected all over, right? And so I think it will still be good for people interested in analytics. It's good to know Python and R. Python or R, any is okay, and also SQL. Since you'll be storing, it's good to store the data in the databases, right? Especially when they're massive. For people interested in being software engineering, right? It depends. Software engineering is huge. We can discuss, but yeah, if I put just front end and back end engineering, front end is the things you see on the website, right? So that's usually, it's good to start with the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Then if you want to do map visualization, you can do OpenLayers, Leaflet, Mapbox, Google Maps API, Here Maps API. There are various freemium, free, and also charge APIs for making maps on the web, right? But then again, there are also frameworks like React and Angular, which you might need to know. So if you're interested in that and visualizing map on the web, it will be good to start with JavaScript. And the good thing is also JavaScript is good for the backend. If you like to automate tasks, I'll prefer doing Python because Geospatial has a lot of capabilities in Python. And also backend development will be good to do Python, but yeah, like big enterprise firms also use Java. So it really depends. And yeah, but you cannot go wrong with Python in most cases too, because I think both startups or medium heavily use also Python in when it comes to data, and the Geospatial is its own kind of data with a focus on location. Uh, what else can I say? So basically, I feel that's it. Yeah, I'm leaning towards it's really necessary to know programming. It opens so many opportunities. It gives you a way of thinking, and it's good. Yeah, and I know not everyone can be a programmer, but if you want to focus on the geospatial domain, it will be good to really know programming, be it R, Python, JavaScript, Java. Yeah, you need to start somewhere. But yeah, we can discuss more on this on Q&A to provide better insights and resources if need be, right? But there are various resources, especially on YouTube. There are lots of, if you just search Python tutorial for beginners, you can get a playlist to start that. Then after that, you need to know to look into, you can look into pandas, then GeoPandas, right? Or ACPy if you're using illustrated stuff. Yeah. So that's it here. And right now I'm in academia, right? So as I said, I'm doing my master's. Like I took a career break, but it's kind of, I'm also still working and studying anyway in Germany. But yeah, not working full time anyway, since I'm in a career break. So I'm in academia, and this is the building. Like the one on the left is the Geo1. So it's Institute for Geoinformatics. And that's where I was doing my master's, and I'm still doing since I haven't finished. It's quite an interesting institute and amazing. Right now, the name of the master's has changed to Geoinformatics and Spatial Data Science. But for me, I focused on, I opted to focus on, I like data engineering more and software engineering bits. But what I like is that they covered so many facets that I use today. So for example, we did things to do with the routing algorithms, right? We covered things like Dijkstra, highways, right? Contraction hierarchies and way more. Esther, yeah, there's so many things to know about routing algorithms. So we covered so many things about spatial temporal analysis, right? Spatial data science, I did units on that, and did programming in Java. There's so many things. Yeah, and on the right is just the administration block that we rarely use, but yeah, it's as a student that is, but it's good to go and chill around there and to meet. From my experience in Germany is I've loved it so far. If one can usually get a chance to come and study in Germany, I can recommend it too for a master's, since educations here are free, so which is also another good thing. But if you can't afford the cost of living, there's usually the AAD scholarship to look into. So any questions? So the questions will be on the Q&A when we meet, right? Because this is a pre-recording session. And I'd like to say thank you. I hope I've provided enough insights for the end of 2021 in my journey so far. And yeah, you can connect with me in LinkedIn. So if someone is not using LinkedIn, it's more like Facebook, but for professional, more like a social network for professional. And I believe that's the end of it. See you on Wednesday for the now session that I'm there. And yeah, goodbye.